Tonight, an Iranian missile shot down in NATO territory as the US launches a deadly strike off Sri Lanka. Emotions run high as the first Australians arrive home from the Gulf. Good evening, I'm Kyle Dowling. This is ABC News, Northern Territory. Also tonight, appeals to the NT government not to allow fracking near a spectacular hot springs. Calls for more competition as unhappy customers slam Jacana Energy. And the Formula One underway in Melbourne with some big rule changes coming up. Australian military assets have been deployed to the Middle East as part of contingency plans to help bring Australians home. War in the region is widening sharply, with 10 countries now under attack from the Iranian regime. Iran continues to carry out strikes on multiple neighbours, insisting it's aiming at US military targets. NATO defences shot down a ballistic missile believed to be launched at Turkish territory. Israel and the US have been pounding Tehran and parts of Lebanon, including Beirut, while an American submarine has sunk an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean near Sri Lanka. We will have more on Lebanon and Australian repatriation soon. Bridget Rollison begins our coverage from Jerusalem.
An Iranian warship in the firing line. A torpedo from an American submarine sinking the vessel off the coast of Sri Lanka, killing at least 87 Iranian sailors.
This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
The conflict spreading to the Indian Ocean and into NATO territory after the alliance's air defences destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile headed for Turkey.
We are giving warnings in the clearest way possible for similar incidents not to occur again.
While in neighbouring Syria, an unexploded missile fell near the city of Qamishli.
It terrified children, women and people in the village.
6 days into the conflict, the US claims Iran is firing fewer missiles and that American and Israeli forces will soon have full control of the country's airspace.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15.
There could soon be another front in this already complex war, with reports American-backed Kurdish fighters in Iraq could launch a ground invasion in Iran. The White House has confirmed Donald Trump has spoken to Kurdish leaders, but has denied suggestions the president has authorised such a plan. An internet blackout imposed by the regime makes it difficult for Iranians to communicate with the outside world, but a professor in Tehran who supports the regime spoke to the ABC to criticise the US operation. Americans say that this campaign is ahead of schedule and it's taken out many senior figures. Is it time up for the Islamic regime?
No, these are pipe dreams. Trump has unified Iranians more than any Iranian politician could ever do.
Pointing specifically to the bombing of a girls' school, estimated to have killed more than 160 children.
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that.
The death toll across the Middle East and beyond continuing to rise as the conflict expands. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The federal government is refusing to say whether any Australian Defence Force personnel were on the US submarine which sank an Iranian frigate overnight. Dozens of Australians are embedded on US attack-class subs as part of their training to operate the future AUKUS submarine fleet. The Foreign Minister has confirmed Australia did not participate in the US and Israeli airstrikes on Iran, but she has refused to say whether any Australians were on the US submarine which torpedoed the Iranian warship.
Were any Australian personnel on this US submarine when it sank the Iranian frigate and left the survivors to drown?
For operational and security reasons, we do not disclose specific information regarding Australian personnel.
Israel has told residents to leave a large swathe of southern Lebanon as it expands its assault on the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Tens of thousands of Lebanese people have already been displaced in the past few days.
The Beirut bombardment. Israeli fighter jets launching strikes across the Lebanese capital against claimed Hezbollah targets, tearing city blocks apart, while focusing on the southern suburbs of Dahia, known as the militant group's strongholds.
We will not surrender. We will defend ourselves with our capabilities and our faith, no matter the sacrifices.
Israel struck further afield too, including at this hotel in a predominantly Christian neighbourhood. As staff began the mammoth clean-up task, questions were asked about why this site was targeted.
My family lives here. I cannot knowingly accommodate someone who is being targeted. We can screen people, but we cannot know everything.
There might be some of these places that are connected or affiliated to Hezbollah.
Tens of thousands have been displaced in recent days since Hezbollah launched rockets at Israel and Israel hit back hard. That number will now rise off the back of a startling escalation from the military.
We've just arrived here in northern Israel, very close to the Lebanon border, and it's at this point that the IDF has announced an evacuation of the entirety of southern Lebanon, telling people to move north. You can hear a series of explosions just over the border as Israel intensifies its strikes in that region.
The IDF telling hundreds of thousands of people in this area, long regarded Hezbollah heartland, to leave immediately. Over the border in Israel, locals are bracing for the worst.
I'm sure that also the Lebanese don't want Hezbollah. They don't want them. We hear shooting.
So that's the sound of gunfire that we can hear from over the border?
In my opinion, this is shooting. I think the Israeli army is going inside now.
And with a front row seat to the new front, it won't be the last echoes of battle to be heard. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Metula.
More Australians are due to arrive back home tonight after a deal was struck between Gulf states and Iran to open safe airspace over the Middle East and clear the backlog of stranded passengers. Australian consular crisis teams have been deployed and military planes are on standby in the region to support further repatriations after the first commercial flight landed into Sydney last night.
Tears, cheers and relief after days of chaos and fear. Australians finally home after a back-channel deal between Gulf countries and Iran, allowing the limited opening of one safe flight corridor.
Yeah, we got her! Yeah, she's back!
Emirates flight EK414 from Dubai touching down in Sydney last night, carrying 200 passengers. Among the arrivals were more than a dozen students and teachers from Sydney's Barker College. They were on their way to Turkey for a robotics competition when the conflict forced a stopover in Dubai.
There's some very excited parents here, some very relieved staff.
We were told not to go on our phones, try to conserve battery, but we were taken to a bunker.
Sam Brown, her husband and their 4-year-old daughter had only just started a new life in Dubai.
I never thought I'd be in a situation where I heard explosions over my living room, front door rattling.
World champion triathlete Emma Carney was caught up in chaos in Bahrain. After a tense dash to the UAE and multiple flights, she finally landed in Melbourne last night.
It's wonderful to be home.
As the crisis deepens, the Australian government's confirmed it's sent 2 military transport planes to the region. A KC-30 and a C-17A was sent over earlier this week.
The government is deploying 6 crisis response teams to the region, and we've already deployed military assets as part of our contingency planning.
A second plane load of passengers is due to touch down in Sydney tonight, with more expected in coming days, although it's unclear how long the safe flight corridor will remain open. Passengers are urged to stay across updates from airlines and Smart Traveller. Relief for some as the long road home continues for those left behind. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
Water scientists, green groups and traditional owners are calling on the Northern Territory Government not to approve an application by Santos to drill and frack 12 test shale gas wells on a remote cattle station. They're worried the project could damage a spectacular little explored hot springs on Tanambrini Station near Daily Waters.
The water and rock underneath the remote Hot Springs Valley in the northeast of the NT's gas-rich Beetaloo Basin are little understood. So the CSIRO is studying the highly environmentally and culturally significant springs to see if they could be affected by gas fracking. It says the study won't be complete for several months, so water scientists are warning the NT government should not already be considering an application from gas giant Santos for 12 test fracking wells nearby.
There's some significant concern that the hydraulic fracturing activity could have an impact on those springs.
Some scientists think the project could also affect the Cox River and Limon Bight on the Gulf of Carpentaria.
Contaminating activities occurring up in the upper parts of these catchments, the effects of that can be felt downstream for many, many tens or hundreds of kilometres.
It's worrying Indigenous custodians.
It could really affect our waters, even into the Gulf, so yeah, we're really worried about fracking.
It's going to affect us mob that got our totems through that area.
Santos already has one test well on Tanambrini Station. In its application for 12 more, it's predicted the NT is on the cusp of a gas boom. Environment groups think the project is too risky.
We simply do not know enough about this system, the way it connects with waterways, the interconnections between the surface aquifer and the layers deep below, to take the risk of fracking it.
In its application, Santos says it will protect the integrity of surface and groundwater and make sure wastewater, chemicals and hydrocarbons are not released accidentally. In a statement to the ABC, it said it's been safely developing and producing gas in South Australia and southwest Queensland for more than 60 years. Jane Barden, ABC News.
In Alice Springs and throughout the Northern Territory, there are limited options for power, with most people signed up to government-owned provider Jacana Energy. Consumer advocates say there should be more options.
The Northern Territory's main electricity provider leaving customers in the dark. Jo Hurd didn't receive a power bill from Jacana for 6 months before her electricity was cut off without warning.
Just to be disconnected with no attempt at trying to contact me, not via phone, not via email, not via letter, anything, nothing at all. I think it's pretty disgusting.
And she's not alone. Others too receive bills late, are told to pay immediately, sign up to repayment plans or get cut off.
And I just think it's really unfair of Jacana not to bill customers in a timely manner like they have been doing for the past 25 years, every quarter, no dramas.
Dozens of Alice Springs residents have reached out to the ABC to say they've faced issues with Jacana as well. But with only 2 residential energy providers in town, many people say they feel stuck.
Lutheran Care says debt support demand is high.
We're getting a lot of requests from clients to come in and look for assistance around assisting to get their either power reconnected or to negotiate on their behalf.
We have been hearing this and we've been hearing stories like this and we are concerned about it. Our starting point is that electricity is an essential service.
A spokesperson from Jacana apologised to customers and said during 2025, a small number of customers experienced delays in receiving their electricity bills due to technical issues within our billing processes. These issues have now been resolved. Residents getting sick of the power struggle. Elsie Lange, ABC News, Alice Springs.
Northern Territory fuel providers stand accused of ripping off motorists, with prices at some Darwin Bowsers leaping 20 cents a litre since the Israeli and US strikes against Iran over the weekend. The Northern Territory government says it will contribute to a consumer watchdog investigation of the price hikes.
A world away from war, motorists in Alice Springs are seeing the results. Fuel companies using the chaos to reap profits when much of the territory is still flood affected, according to the NT government.
This is gouging at its worst at a time, particularly for the Territory. When you look at what's happened here over the last month or two, is that we've had significant rains. We're coming off the back of Cyclone Fina. Territorians have been doing it tough for the last couple of months.
The Treasurer urging motorists to shop around, admitting there's not much any government can do except support the Federal Consumer Watchdog to investigate.
Call out the ones that are gouging us. And I said that's the data that I can provide to the ACCC, and hopefully they can do something about it.
The NT's motoring body says crude oil prices have not risen enough to justify the price hikes in Darwin, but also recognising it could be worse.
In the Northern Territory we are doing okay, especially in Darwin. There's a lot of fuel being sold in the low 180s, whereas I hear in the eastern states, especially in Sydney and Melbourne, they're paying up to 220.
Hardest hit those in remote communities who've always had to wear Australia's highest fuel prices.
The problem with fuel increases is that it's going to have a flow-on impact across the community. So things like groceries and all of that could become more expensive as well. So it is a concern if retailers do decide to keep these prices up unrealistically high.
A spokesperson for United Petroleum says as wholesale prices decline or stabilise, motorists can expect fuel prices to follow, but adding it was impossible to predict when that would occur with war in the Middle East and the barrel price escalating. Oliver Chaseling, ABC News.
A 25-year-old fatal hit-and-run driver who fled the scene of a crash and then sent text messages calling the victims dogs has been allowed to keep his driver's licence. Jake Danby today pleaded guilty in Darwin local court to speeding, driving unlicensed and unregistered over the incident where he struck two Aboriginal men, then fled the scene in June 2024. He was convicted and sentenced for the main charge of hit-and-run driving resulting in a death in the NT Supreme Court last year. Today, Judge Therese Austin fined Danby more than $2,000, but decided against suspending his licence. She told the court he needed it to drive to work sites while serving a home detention sentence until September 2027. Tributes have flowed for Darwin property developer John Halikos following his death overnight. The prominent member of Darwin's Greek community was 66 years old and is being remembered for his considerable impact on Darwin's cityscape and in his homeland, Kalymnos Island. NT Senator Jacinta Numbajinpa-Price and Chief Minister Leah Finocchiaro posted social media tributes thanking him for his contribution to the Territory's construction centre. Mr Halikos has been celebrated by the NT's Greek Society for an unwavering devotion to his roots and his deep love for Kalymnos. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has used a major speech in Parliament to issue a call for middle powers to band together in the face of coercion from superpowers. But the Middle East war has loomed over the visit. Mr Carney and Anthony Albanese both calling for de-escalation but not pressing for a ceasefire. Here's Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts.
Far-flung friends gathering against a backdrop of war. Mark Carney greeted like family at Australia's Parliament.
Though we could not be further physically apart, Canada and Australia are strategic cousins.
The distance between our two nations has never mattered less, and the closeness of our values has never mattered more.
But the world outside is more dangerous and uncertain, both leaders grappling with the spreading disorder and violence in the Middle East. But neither are calling for a ceasefire, at least for now.
I want to see the possibility of Iran getting a nuclear weapon removed once and for all.
Before there can be a ceasefire, there needs to be a de-escalation of hostilities. Right now we have a spreading of hostilities.
Both countries know they risk becoming mere bystanders as great powers become more willing to wield economic power and deploy military force. Mr Carney using his speech to Parliament to revive his call for middle powers like Canada and Australia to form new coalitions.
The question today for middle powers like us is whether we establish the conventions and help write the new rules that will determine our security and prosperity, or let the hegemons dictate outcomes.
For all the talk of a coalition of middle powers, the brute reality is that Canada and Australia will remain dependent in important ways on both the US and China for years to come. The question is, what red lines can they draw and how can they try to enforce them? For now, the steps are modest. The two countries penning new agreements on critical minerals, vaccines, emergency management and agreeing to set up a defence ministers' meeting.
Australia and Canada have never waited for others to write our futures.
When the rules no longer protect you, you have to protect yourself. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Canberra.
Australians are still prepared to pay more for their children's education despite the cost of living crunch. Parents are continuing to abandon public schools for private enrolments, with financial surveys showing education is one of the last costs parents will skimp on.
Australian students are on the move, away from public schools and toward private religious ones. Australian Christian College on Sydney's northwest fringe has tripled in size.
4 or 5 years ago, we were a school of 450, 500. This year, we are a school of over 1,500.
McDonald's or pizza, something like that.
Andrew Padell says the financial sacrifice is worth it because of the school's values.
For us, this is the investment for their future, where they will get the good education as well as the good manner.
The exodus to private schools is coming at a cost to family budgets. Australian parents are now spending almost 2.5 times more than the OECD average to send their kids to high school.
I don't think it's a good news story.
Emma Rowe says unfair funding is shortchanging public education and warns the almost 40% of parents going private that fees are rising faster than inflation.
We also have this kind of, it's like a tinderbox of problems that's going to explode in terms of a rising cost of tuition fees.
Behavioural economist Dean Pearson says his long-term research shows parents are attracted by extra wellbeing support.
More often than not, they will also talk about counsellors, pastoral care, spirituality.
And it's a cost parents will go to great lengths to absorb.
We really love our children, we love our pets, and they're the two categories that they'll say, look, if I have to cut back on anything, that's the last category I want to touch.
3 millimetres. A prediction private school classrooms will continue to swell. Connor Duffy, ABC News.
To finance now, and the price of oil has jumped to its highest level in a year and a half as war rages on in the Middle East. While the share market managed to recoup some of its heavy losses from earlier this week. Here's David Chow.
Well, markets across the world tanked earlier this week after the US and Israel started a new war in the Middle East. But many of these markets got over their doom and gloom and rebounded, like South Korea's Kospi, up more than 10% in one day. What's behind this sudden burst of optimism is a report from the New York Times, citing unnamed officials. And that report says Iran's spy agency reached out indirectly to America's CIA to discuss terms for ending the war, something which Iranian officials publicly deny. So the hope this war might not drag on for too long is probably why oil prices haven't spiked all that much in the grand scheme of things. Certainly nowhere near as much as they did when Russia invaded Ukraine. Now that was a spike. Or perhaps markets are underestimating how serious things could get, especially if we fast forward to a few weeks from now and oil tankers still are unable or unwilling to go through the Strait of Hormuz for fear of being attacked by Iranian forces. In commodities, oil went up another 3%, which takes prices to their highest level in a year and a half. That's despite Donald Trump's pledge to protect and insure oil tankers passing through the Persian Gulf. And there was a moderate rise in the price of gold. The Australian share market, meanwhile, clawed back about 0.5%, though it's still down about 3% since the week began. Tech, defence and energy stocks did well, but Star Entertainment was today's big loser. That's after the federal court found its former CEO Matt Bekier and former in-house lawyer Paula Martin breached their duties as executives by not doing enough to prevent money laundering at Star's casinos. They'll be back in court in a few days to learn how much they've been fined. And finally, the Aussie dollar is a little bit weaker at 70.5 US cents. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30, the rape trial that shocked the world and the brave woman who refused anonymity.
What was it really like seeing those 50 men in that courtroom?
J'étais partie en me disant que je ne voulais rien laisser paraître. C'est-à-dire que je voulais rester digne, leur montrer qu'ils ne m'atteignaient pas, ils pouvaient me défier, me regarder. Alors je ne dis pas que c'était facile, il y avait des moments où j'ai eu envie d'hurler, mais je ne voulais pas leur laisser ce plaisir.
Formula One teams officially clocked in for the first race of the 2026 season, and fans flocked to Albert Park to be part of it. It comes as the grid braces for a raft of rule changes, with teams scrambling to get familiar with their new cars.
Season 2026 is on the starting grid. 22 drivers clocking in for a season of 12 rule changes.
No one really knows where they are at. I think, honestly, we're maybe not as good as where we want to be.
Your teammate said he was a bit nervous about Melbourne.
I'm not.
The new cars are lighter.
With a shortened wheelbase that makes them more nimble and more responsive through the corners.
They'll run on sustainable fuels. The old drag reduction system is out. Overtake mode is in.
It's available to every driver, every lap, to make the most of both downforce and car power.
The drivers have more control over tactics.
At their fingertips is the boost button.
And it makes for far less predictable racing and even more excited fans. Even before the gates officially opened, the diehards had a plan.
Okay, so I kind of did skip law school today to come here.
So my hope for today is Charles notices me at the Melbourne Walk in the banana.
The 1 kilometre foot race to the Melbourne Walk was the first priority. The prize, a moment and hopefully a signature from their favourite drivers. One by one, the stars arrived.
Clear apart, guys. Clear apart, please.
But even a 7-time champion couldn't steal the spotlight for long. There's new rules, there's even new faces, but with the whole centre draped in papaya, Oscar Piastri mania has officially hit Melbourne.
Oscar, please.
The only debutant on the grid quickly got his taste of Melbourne.
A bit of a busy entrance, that was a lot more than I was expecting.
The 18-year-old will drive for Racing Bulls in a season of fresh starts. Alexia Pesce, ABC News, Melbourne.
The Matildas are on track for a comfortable win over Iran in their second game of the Women's Asian Cup, leading 3-0 at half-time. Here are some of the highlights from the Gold Coast.
Mane wants to take through traffic, and that's a top save. Down to her left, slick conditions. She's done very well to hold on to that. She finds at the last moment across and that pass. Well, it's found its way all the way into the back of the net. Forward. Glances ahead. The eyes are on Kerr. Doesn't beat her with at the far post. And it's Mary Fowler. It's not the cleanest goal she'll ever score, but she won't mind too much.
In time for the weather now, and tonight's weather pic of Darwin Harbour last night has been sent in by Joy Dip Roy. And you can send us your weather photos to weatherpicsnt@abc.net.au. There are heavy falls in the top end overnight and monsoon showers and storms in the northern half of the NT today. It was 29 degrees in Darwin, 28 in Batchelor, zooming out 28 in Katherine, 32 in Nhulunbuy and Borroloola 30. And 30 degrees for Alice Springs, 35 in Yulara and Tennant Creek 33. On the satellite, thick clouds still covered the north of the country due to the monsoon and tropical lows. A monsoon trough stretches across the north of Australia with tropical lows in the Carpentaria district and off the WA coast and are moving westerly. Interstate tomorrow, Hobart a top of 23, partly cloudy for Melbourne, Canberra reaching a top of 30, 29 degrees in Sydney, showers expected to ease in Brisbane, sunny in Adelaide and clear skies for Perth. Time for the territory forecast. Alice Springs cloudy and 29 tomorrow, 35 in Tennant Creek and a shower or two for Elliot. Heading north, rain in Katherine and in Mataranka and showers expected for Bullman. And looking west, showers for Warramayunga tomorrow and for Darwin, rain expected with a top of 29 degrees. And flood watches are continuing in both the north and south of the Northern Territory. Also, an initial flood watch has been issued for Katherine River with minor flooding possible at Nitmaluk Centre tomorrow morning. There's been moderate rainfall in the Katherine River catchments with further rainfall possibly seeing further rises ahead. And there's a morning high tide at just after 8 o'clock and a low tide at 2:06 in the afternoon. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:48 and set at 7:07. And looking ahead for Darwin, periods of rain and heavy falls ahead. We could see those conditions over the next couple of days, with showers and possible storms lingering as well. And for Alice Springs, conditions clearing with a return of clear skies possibly from the weekend, though there is still a slight chance of showers hanging around. And stay with us now. Sarah Ferguson is up next with 7:30. Good night.